I start hating you guys in here, I'm going to have bigger problems than I already got. And I already got a pretty big problem. A life sentence, that's pretty big.
The LaMonte Armstrong case was a case where a woman in Greensboro was killed in a home invasion in the late 1980s. She was strangled and stabbed, I believe, twice in the chest. And our client was convicted of the murder in the mid-90s, based solely on the testimony of one man, Charles Blackwell.
Was I not the most honest and truthfulest person in that courtroom during my trial? I've never had any infractions. I've done all the freaking work or taken all the classes that they asked me to take. It's called a MAP program. Mutual agreement between state or prison system and inmate. They can keep their damn MAP, because hopefully Duke can walk me out of the courtroom.
I've spent too long away from home.
Let me show you where I got validated and what made my day. Teresa wrote me a letter back and she says, "Lamont, you sure were. You were the most honest and truthfulest person in that courtroom." I don't know what the judge is going to say weeks from now, months from now. I don't really know if I'm going to be exonerated. But I know this. For a woman of her stature to write me back and just tell me what she had seen and what she had found and be convinced that, yes, you are the most truthfulest person that was in that courtroom, that made my day. I've been pretty cool since then. So I know if she knows it, I also know James Coleman knows it. Finally, somebody else knew what I know. I've been knowing it, you see, but no one else knows, and no one else would listen. Man, ain't this something? I've never had any visits on my birthday while in prison. So when I turned and looked, I see her coming through the sliding glass door. So I began to walk up towards the front of the visitation area to greet her. Watch this. When I turn, let's see, if I'm way back here, she's coming in from right that way. When I turn like this, and turn the corner, and I'm facing right in front of her, she's coming in through the sliding glass door, so like she's coming from that door. And we're walking towards each other like this. She's got her pocketbook and her laptop, I think that was it, in both hands. And she just, as soon as she makes eye contact with me, you know what she starts doing? Singing happy birthday. And I'm standing there like this. Oh my gosh, and she's just singing, happy birthday to you, happy birthday, Lamont. And I'm like, oh my gracious. I said, you are too much. And I just kept saying, I said, you are too much, you're too much. She sung about 4 verses. I'm looking at her, I said, is this lady real? Let me tell you how the rest of that visit went. She says, oh, I bought you a present too. Now let me show you what I do when she says that. When she says that, I know that you guys don't really know everything that you can and cannot bring in here. So this is what I do, Ryan. When she said that, I says, present? And then I did one of these to see if the officer was looking. I didn't know where he was at. I started looking around to see what he was looking at. Like, oh my gosh. I said, you did for real? She said, what's your present? He wasn't paying us no attention. She goes over here to the laptop and she lifts it up and she types in some stuff and cut it on and this, that, and the other. Next thing she knows, I know, she says, you ready? I said, yeah. She goes in her pocketbook and pulls out a DVD, sticks it in the side, does something, cuts it on. And whenever she starts hitting, I hear this voice. And I was like, wait a minute. I recognize that voice. And guess who it was? It was Blackwell. She was playing for me his recantation that he gave to Henry Fry in the office. And I sit there and I look and listened, and I'm shaking my head, and he's going on and on and on and on. And the same, they got it in the mall. So I'm sitting there listening. So I'm gonna show you what I come up with when he finishes. I said, Teresa, she says, what do you think? I says, yeah, but. I know she probably said, oh, he got one of those buts. I says, but why in the world did it take 15 freaking years for you to do this, man? You know? And she said to me, like you said, she's funny, and she knows what to say, when to say.
That's right.
She reaches over and grabs my hand and says, Lamont, listen. Is it to say cool off, cool down? She says, listen, would you have rather had him do this now or never? And man, you talking about somebody just busting me down. Whatever anger I had just disappeared. She just zapped it out of me.
One of her specialties.
It is, man. She just took that thing right away from me. Because I was hot when I got to thinking about what he was saying and how long it took him to say this. Why it take 15 years? I'm okay. Then on top of that, Thanksgiving. I've never had a visit during Thanksgiving, right? Until this past Thanksgiving. And not only did I have one visit, I had two. You and Teresa and John came at Monday, and Jamie and Michael came Wednesday, and Thanksgiving was Thursday. So, man, I had one hell of a Thanksgiving.
This is another factor that underlies a lot of leads to a lot of wrongful convictions. It's snitches, false informant testimony, and that's what happened in this case. A gentleman who wanted to get the Crime Stoppers money and knew that our client knew this woman, called the police and said, you should look at this person. So 6 years later, they didn't have any leads in this case, but they had this informant. So they decided to charge him with the murder. So they charged him with murder and said, you will carry the murder charge unless you testify against who wasn't our client at the time, but against, I'll use his first name, it's Lamont, against Lamont. So he decided, as he now says to Lamont, I couldn't carry the murder charge, man. I couldn't carry a life sentence. I couldn't carry a life sentence. So I put it on you.
And when I first got here to this camp, I found out that Charles Blackwell Jr., even though he didn't call himself Jr., is here at this camp. I kept hearing the name. I thought it was the dad, the one that had testified against me and put me in prison. Come to find out, it's his son. So I'd been here a month and a half, and the kid came up to me one day and says, hey man, said Greensboro. I said, yeah. Is your name LaMonte Armstrong? Do you know him? And we sort of walked over where nobody couldn't hear our conversation. He says, man, my dad told me, man, all about what he did, man. I says, he did? And the dude told me, yeah. He says, you know what I asked him? I says, no, what? Why did he wait so long, man? The same thing I asked Teresa, why so long? The kid said he asked his daddy, why did you wait so long to straighten that man? And he's over there in prison and done all this time for nothing. I said, well, how about that? I'm open-minded enough to know that I probably will have to forgive these people. And not for their sake. I'm going to do it for my sake. So I can move on.
We actually have a symbiotic relationship with the police and the prosecutors in terms of, ensuring that the system has functioned properly.
I was working on other cases in June, early June, and we received a phone call from Assistant District Attorney Howard Newman, who was assigned to this case. Preparing for the hearing, Detective Matthews had gone back over all of the evidence in the case. And one thing he decided to do was to rerun latent prints, handprint, palm prints and fingerprints that were left at the scene of the crime and that had never been matched to anyone before. So they ran them through a newer North Carolina database, a regional database, and they got a hit. They got a match. So we called the prison, and they allowed us to do an emergency visit with LaMonte. And anyone who knows LaMonte knows that he loves to tell stories. We got there, emergency visit. He didn't know why we were there. When I arrived, I said, we have some really interesting new development to tell you about, striking new development. And he started off on a story about something completely unrelated and just went on with these great details. He's a wonderful storyteller. And finally I leaned across the table and I said, this is fascinating, but do you think you want to hear what we came here to tell you? And he said, oh yeah, I do. So we told him, and as I've told others, he closed his eyes and lowered his head, and looked up and said, I wish I had it recorded, but he said, is this real? And then he said, really, pinch me, because I don't know if this can be real.
Even standing in front of the courthouse, it's not quite real yet. And we were talking about how LaMonte feels and everything that's got to be swirling through his head, and I guess we'll see it all soon.
The students are extraordinary. They've gone out and interviewed witnesses, they pulled together documents, they analyze those documents, they discover things that no one has discovered before about cases.
Big guns go in there. Yes,
What's that? Right here. Okay, let's go hold that. Give me a film.
Here.
I know. Turn around here, people.
These freaking people.
Put your out.
Ran me in here. Now they don't want to let me out. So, what you think now? Huh? Can't believe it.
If we had known you were called Shorty, we would have expected her to be short.
Is it real? That's what I told them to do. Let me pinch me, see if this is real. So what are we going to do?
Whatever you want. Where do you want to go?
I want to get the hell out of this jail.
Let's go.
What is it like, getting out after all these years, knowing that you didn't do it?
What's it like? Good night. I'm probably the only one that really knew it, with the exception of my family. My mom and dad knew it. There are a lot of my friends that I see in this lobby. They were the ones that kept writing me for the last 18 years. They knew it too. But for years, I wrote upon deaf ears, closed eyes. And I get deterred for 2-3 days. And somehow, some way, God would give me the strength to pick it up again. I'd go right back to writing again and write. I heard inmates tell me, says, LA, you don't do nothing but write. I'm fighting for my life. Are you not aware of this? I've seen it on the TV though. 100, 103, 100 this, 100.
What it is, too,
yeah.
Jack.
Man, it damn sure is, man.
Let's breathe it.
2 days ago, they let me out the fence to talk to this lady, right?
LA.
And I stood outside the fence and was talking to the lady. I'm good.
You sure?
Yeah. I was talking to the lady. When I came back in the fence, it dawned on me, you just stood outside the fence, that nobody had no gun on you, or none of this right here. And I realized how important it was. I just did this for the first time in 18 years. See, I gotta show y'all something.
Yeah.
See, I don't know, you've seen this, haven't you? You seen that?
Oh yeah, I saw that. You saw it. Yeah, you showed it to us.
They haven't seen it. Check that out. I passed that to Teresa the other day.
Oh my gosh, this is Monopoly.
You gotta sketch it.
How you want to listen to it? I ain't done nothing. Now, they don't give you a bond with this dumb charge. What is y'all driving?
How you like that? You guys are going up here and we're going to follow you.
Oh, okay.
Take care, Mr. Armstrong. Thank you.
Yeah. What you driving, man?
You get shotgun. Let me get the seatbelt thing covered.
327 Battleground.
I'm riding in the front seat.
When was the last time you were in the front seat?
Boy, you know what? It's been a while. It's been a while.
Having your case, you know, I can't tell you how many times that's got me through my first year of being in the role, and like having something to feel that I can feel passionate about and work towards. I don't think you know that you've changed all of our lives as much as you think we might have helped towards. So I just want you to know that.
If you've affected all of us this way, there's so many other people that will benefit from. There were so many people that benefited from you on the inside, and I can't wait to come back, sit at something like this, and kind of look back a year, 2 years down the road, and see what you've done now. I can't wait.
Peace.
"24 years after the murder of a North Carolina A&T State University professor, the man in prison for that crime is set free. Prosecutors now believe he did not commit the crime. A judge released LaMonte Armstrong from prison at a hearing this afternoon in Greensboro. Two things worked in his favor. A man who testified against him changed his story, and a palm print found at the scene also matches that of another man suspected of the crime who has since died. Well, LaMonte Armstrong is a free man with a lot of catching up to do, and he spoke to us about his determination to prove he is not a killer.
And spoke to us about his desire to build relationships with his children. Fox 8's Kristen Nelson joined us live now outside the courthouse. Kristen, why did the judge finally decide to set him free?
Well, Julie, you know, it wasn't easy, first of all, to get the judge to hear his case, but he was determined to get his freedom back, and he did. It happened inside this courthouse with the help of some students from Duke University. After 17 years, LaMonte Armstrong is a free man.
And I prayed for this and prayed for this and prayed for this. And back to what my mom said, son, don't forget to pray.
In 1995, he was convicted of a crime he did not commit. A jury believing in 1988 he killed one of his former NCA&T professors, Ernestine Compton. Armstrong insisted he didn't do it.
But for years, I wrote upon deaf ears, closed eyes. And I get deterred for 2-3 days. And somehow, some way, you know, God would give me the strength to pick it up again. I go right back to writing again. And right.
His determination caught the attention of Duke University's Wrongful Convictions Clinic. The group of law professors and students found Greensboro police missed some key evidence and hid details from Armstrong's defense team. The case also hinged on a convicted felon who once told police he saw Armstrong murder the professor, but has since taken it back.
Yeah, I'm somewhat angry. Yeah, you can't help from being. I'm human, you know. I'm glad to see Guilford County finally rectify itself.
Armstrong missed a lot behind bars. He has a daughter who he hasn't spent any time with since she was little, and his son who was 19 when his dad went to prison.
But now being 36 years old, and I have kids of my own, I just thank God that they'll be able to see their grandfather.
And Armstrong has big plans, starting with a meal.
I'm looking forward to some real food.
And eventually furthering his education.
I'm challenging this person beside me, this little person. If I finish school, will you finish? If I go back, will you go back? So we're going to see what happens with that.
And Armstrong was born in Brooklyn and says he'd like to go back to New York City. Live in Greensboro, Kristen Nelson, Fox 8 News.
You're taking a deep breath. Free air. We take it for granted. What did you have for dinner tonight? Was it a choice? Well, for 17 years, one man didn't have those luxuries.
I'm looking forward to some real food. I went and did.
That was LaMonte Armstrong, a father, a son, a brother, and he missed 17 years of life behind bars for a crime he didn't commit. Armstrong was convicted of first-degree murder for the 1988 stabbing and strangling of Ernestine Compton. He was sentenced to life in prison in 1995. But Duke University's Wrongful Convictions Clinic and the Innocence Project worked to get Armstrong's case heard.
But for years, I wrote upon deaf ears, closed eyes.
And today, he is a free man. Armstrong says he's ready to begin his next chapter.
I considered going back to school. I have 1 degree, BS, from North Carolina A&T. And I thought about adding a substance abuse 2-year degree with this.
Well, now he has opportunities to do whatever he wants. There is a slight chance LaMonte Armstrong could be retried, but the DA says that's pretty unlikely. Well, this by far not the triad's first wrongly convicted inmate. No. In 2004, the State Center on Actual Innocence helped exonerate Darrell Hunt. He was convicted in 1984 for the rape and murder of Deborah Sykes, but new DNA evidence exonerated him. 20 years later, he was released and pardoned in 2003. In 2009, Joseph Abbott was released from prison. He was convicted in 1995 for the 1991 rape of 2 sisters. He served 14 years of a life sentence before DNA evidence cleared him. Now, in most of their cases, a team of volunteers are working with the Innocence Project, and they're doing so together to find and free wrongfully convicted inmates. We've got more information on Armstrong, Hunt, Abbott, and the entire Innocence Project on digtriad.com.
Is there any anger in your heart at the state for not getting it right the first time?
With the state? You know, I was sitting down also trying to figure out when did they try to imprint the first time, and why did they come up the first time? You know, I cannot, for some reason I cannot understand that part.
Do you feel like it was an honest mistake that got you in behind bars, or do you feel like it was not an honest mistake?
The prints not being found was an honest mistake. The rest I choose not to comment on. A team, the Duke team, they came and they kept coming, and they finally came to believe